That's where I struggle with it. That's what I hear from a lot of different parents. So one of the things you're gonna see with this is you will never get robotic pre-programmed kinds of behaviors. In fact, robotic behavior is often talked about as a symptom of autism. I'm not at all convinced that it is a symptom of autism. I think it's a symptom of the way that we teach children with autism. And when you teach someone repetitively like that, and there's no context for our children actually understanding why they're learning what they're learning, and why they could even be excited about what they're learning, then that's where robotic behavior starts to come in. So this is all about, and again, this is not about finding what your child is motivated by and then letting them do it after they do the thing you want, right? This mother didn't say, okay, you go pee in the toilet. If you go in the toilet, I will let you play with your stepping stool. Right? It's not about saying, go use the toilet, then I'll let you play with Thomas the Tank Engine because I know you like it. Right? It's actually the reverse. It's about saying, you like Thomas the Tank Engine? Holy cow, so do I. Let's play with Thomas the Tank Engine. Oh, by the way, Thomas the Tank Engine is coming right around the toilet here. Right? So it's actually bringing in the educational piece into an activity that is already exciting and motivating for our children. That is the key piece of it. And again, when we do this reward thing too, not only are we not teaching context, nor are we teaching spontaneity, nor are we teaching generalization and interest, but at the same time, we are actually all teaching a way of learning that brands learning as an unpleasant experience. Because what we're basically saying is, do this unfun, unpleasant thing first, and then I'll give you something you like. Because you have to do this lame thing that you don't really want to do. And then you'll do something cool after. Right? It's really interesting. It's the same reason why a lot of typical children and now adults don't like to eat vegetables, but love to eat the desserts and the ice cream. Because we've set it up that way. Eat this gross broccoli, but then you'll get your ice cream for dessert. You don't eat the broccoli, man. You don't get the dessert. I'm just telling you that right now. Right? So we set it up that way. It again promotes the opposite of what we would ideally like. So this is, it's really amazing. I watch my sister Bryn and her husband William, who have kids, and they do things like, hey, if you really sit quietly or do whatever, I'll let you have your bowl of broccoli. I'm not even joking. And her kids are like sitting like, oh, give us the broccoli, right? So ultimately, this is a key piece to realize. We are actually integrating and marrying these two things, the motivation that your child and the interest that your child already has, and the challenge and the educational piece. And let me just say one more time, this is not about children who are pre-verbal or young. This goes toward children and adults of all ages and all skill levels. Perfect example. We had this, we worked with a family who had this daughter, and her name was Sandra. Sandra rocked, right? Sandra was really cool. Sandra was about 15 and a half. She had Asperger's syndrome, okay? So she was highly verbal. She could talk. She would test really high on IQ scores, but she had no social skills whatsoever, couldn't connect with people or form friendships, actually couldn't even really have a typical conversation. What she would mostly do is fire certain types of questions at you that she would want you to answer in a particular way. And the type of questions that she would fire at you, though, had a particular slant to them. And that goes to her motivation. Now, what was her motivation? Sandra was really into daytime talk shows. Now, can anybody guess what Sandra's absolute favorite daytime talk show was? Yes, I heard it. Jerry Springer. That is right, ma'am. Absolutely. Yes, Jerry Springer, which, of course, her parents were so thrilled about that. And as long as we're on this subject, I just have to say, as a representative of my countrymen, that I think I speak for all Americans when I say that we are all very deeply grateful that somebody took the time and the effort to film and get video footage of American citizens at our most humiliating and then ship that footage all over the world. Very happy about that. Anyway, her parents were not thrilled, to say the least, about this whole focus and excitement about Jerry Springer. And what Sandra would do is Sandra was all about she was the Jerry Springer character. It was like she was the one running the daytime talk show. And everybody else was part of the Jerry Springer panel, right? And she would do all sorts of things. I'm thinking, what can I use as an example? Oh, she would do things like this. She'd either get a spoon or a roll of paper like this, or a stick, something that looked like a microphone, right? And she would walk not just through the house, but down the street, and she'd walk up to people and say, "So Bob, why'd you sleep with your wife's sister's cousin?" And of course, her parents would be like, oh my God, this is so inappropriate, honey. Right? And they were just like, we must break her of Jerry Springer. How do we do this? So they came to the startup program, and they came with this really big agenda of, we gotta break her of this Jerry Springer thing, and they had tried lots of different ways, lots of different times to try and stop the Jerry Springer thing. And of course, what happened is Sandra just got more and more into it the more they pushed like that. So they come to the startup program, and they're like, listen, two things. Number one, we really do want to help her move beyond the Jerry Springer thing. Number two is, we'd actually love her to just be able to have a typical conversation with people. Like, you know what? If she could have a typical conversation about like what she liked to do on the weekends, what we like to do on the weekends, we would be thrilled. That would be awesome. So we said, okay, let's look at this. Let's look at this principle. We need these two things, right? We have the motivation, Jerry Springer. Oh yeah, baby, we got that. And we have the educational goal. The educational goal is have a typical conversation about what we like to do on the weekends. Great, that's all you need. So they get home from the startup on Saturday, and they go into Sandra's room, and they set up in the middle of her room a real floor mic, like an actual mic, which Sandra's never gotten to have before. And they set up these 4 chairs along the wall with both of her parents, her aunt, and a family friend, and they're like the Jerry Springer panel, right? Sandra comes in, full lips out, because she's so excited. She's got the mic, she's got the panel. And one of the things that was really, I think a lot of you will relate to this who have children and adults with Asperger's syndrome, is Sandra was very monotone and no facial expression, no displays of emotion. So she'd kind of, even when she'd ask the Jerry Springer question, sometimes she'd mimic Jerry Springer, but most of the time she would just talk like this and have this kind of expression and just talk in monotone like that. So the first things they noticed was that Sandra actually appeared genuinely excited about this. She was jumping up and down, she was grabbing the mic, she was really excited, and she goes over and asks them why they slept with their wife's sister's cousins or whatever. And they answer her. They just get really into it and they answer her. And Sandra is excited, and she's asking them questions, and it's about 25 minutes in, and Sandra's father throws out a question, which is not allowed, by the way, because it has to go along. Jerry Springer asks the questions, Jerry Springer doesn't answer the questions, right? But this has been going on for a while. He just really gently throws out a question, and Sandra answers it. And they all sort of look at each other for a second. They're like, okay. And then about 5 or 6 minutes later, Sandra's mom asks a question, and Sandra answers it. And so slowly they start to ask more and more questions, and the whole tenor of the conversation starts to change direction. And after about an hour and 40 minutes of this is really starting to flesh itself out, they are actually sitting around in her bedroom, quite literally, having a conversation about what different people on the show like to do with their weekends and like to do on the weekends. And Sandra's talking about what she likes to do, and all the people sitting there are talking about what they like to do. The exact kind of typical conversation that they were looking for, they got. But the key is they thought Jerry Springer was in the way of them helping her with this. So they're trying to stamp that out so they could get her to have this conversation. But what they saw was that that Jerry Springer was not in their way. Jerry Springer was a doorway. And so if they used that, they could actually get Sandra to engage in this way. And again, it plays to Sandra's intelligence. Sandra had the capability to have that conversation. Maybe it was a little hard for her. Maybe it wasn't her first choice favorite thing in the whole wide world. But that's why they had to build up lots of motivation on the back end to help push Sandra through that, or help excite Sandra about it, so that Sandra willingly engaged in that way and then started to help to stretch herself with her parents' help to have the kind of conversation that might not immediately come easy to her. So this is a powerful principle. Keep this in mind. You always want to have an educational goal and a motivation that your child is into. I'm going to jump right into the next principle. Okay, it's called teaching socialization through interactive play. Okay, this is really important because, again, the socialization part is key, I tend to see what I sort of think of as an excessive focus and almost an obsession on academic skills as a point of progress for our children. And you know what? Academic skills are important. That's great if a child's making progress in that area, that's wonderful. But let's really put that in the larger picture of what's most important for our children, what they most need help in, and what's most going to benefit them later on. Right? We could, at the Autism Treatment Center of America, and in the Sunrise program, we could spend our focus and get your child to really improve in math and reading, to the point where they're caught up to grade level. And that's great. Then they'll be caught up to grade level. But the problem is they'll be caught up to grade level in math and reading, but they'll still be totally autistic, still have difficulty making friends, not be able to laugh at jokes, not be able to connect with people. Right? We would rather have your child really be able to make friends and have fun in that way and connect with people. And then, if they need help in math and reading, let's help them in math and reading. But we have it's really clearly in that order, And you know what? And I'm sure you can all relate to this, right? When I talk to parents, I don't have parents coming up to me when I ask them like what their dreams are and their hopes are for their children. They don't say, you know, I hope that one day my child could be 2 years ahead in math. Right? Now that would be great, that would be good, but what's really important? What I hear from people is, you know, I hope that one day my child has a bunch of friends, or has a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or has a job that they really like, or complains about their taxes. It's probably an American one. But that they really live all the pieces of their life that we find really satisfying in our life. And then, once they're really seeing success in that area, if they're still behind in math and reading, and by the way, oftentimes they're not, because the main reason they were behind is because they weren't learning from people because they were disconnected from people. So oftentimes by tackling this, you do take care of, by default, these other areas. But if you don't, yes, then we can address those areas. We'll have more of the child's willing engagement then anyway, but they'll already have been successful in the areas that is really most important for them, which is in connecting with other people. And you know what? More and more studies are actually coming out. I just read one a couple days ago. More studies are coming out that are showing that academic success is far less a predictor of being successful in other areas of life than is ability socially, to make friends, to be liked, to connect with other people. That actually has a far greater effect on your trajectory in life anyway. So we stay focused on that area like a laser beam. And we address other areas as they come up, but we stay focused on this area, which is where our children can most use help and where they're going to benefit the most from. And even if we are teaching reading, even if we are, we don't just spend the whole time looking at the book and reading. We might read 2 pages and then act out what just happened on the 2 pages. So everything is interactive. Now there's some just little helping hints that I can throw out that help with implementation of this principle in a practical sense. The first one is we call it the 3 E's: energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. And look, take the example of a circus, right? Circuses are exciting and engage kids across cultures. And that is because circuses are masters of the 3 E's. Circuses know all about it. They know that that's the best way to engage, is if they infuse everything that they're doing with a real sense of color and excitement and enthusiasm and energy. So that actually matters. It might sound simple, but it's actually quite important. If you add the 3 E's to any other learning activity or any activity that you're doing with your child, guaranteed it will increase your child's overall attention span and engagement. It's an easy thing to do, and it adds a lot to whatever you're doing. 3 other pieces to this principle. First one is celebrate. Celebrate is important, right? Now, again, a lot of people say, oh, I already do that, right? And it looks like, oh, nice job, excellent job, sweetie, awesome, you did that, right? That's praise, that's cool, that's good, but we mean really celebrate. We mean actually getting excited. Think of something in your life, right? You all have something in your life that you're passionate about that is really exciting to you, right? That's what we want to do when our children really come through and do something that they've been trying to do and that they get right. Right? We want to really get excited, like, yes, you did it, you just used your words, that is awesome. Right? We want to get really excited. Now, listen, you don't have to do it like me. right? That's me, okay? That's the way I do it. You do it in your way. You don't have to try and be me. You don't have to try and be American. You all have your own personalities, but there's a way that however you are when you get really excited and invested in something, the maximum of what you do. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be loud. In fact, if your child has hypersensitive hearing, you don't even want it to be loud. Right? But there's lots of ways to do it, right? If I have a child who maybe has sensitive hearing, then no, I'm not going to scream and jump up and down, but I might go, oh, that was great, awesome. Sometimes getting more quiet actually brings more emphasis to what you're doing anyway. So there's lots of different ways to do this, but the key thing to realize is big reaction equals maximum chance of repeat performance. Big reaction, repeat performance. And I'm going to tell you about a situation where that can actually come back and bite you. But in this situation, it absolutely helps you. Whenever your child does anything like that you want them to do, you want to get a maximum celebration going because that maximizes the chances of repeat performance. Secondly, we want to encourage our children to be good triers. Now, what does that mean? First of all, in complete honesty, most of the children that we work with in the Sunrise program aren't very good triers. They'll try once, and then they're done. They don't get it right, they're moving on. Right? Now, this is one of the many examples where this comes from our own life, right? Most of us, as adults, are petrified of failing, of looking, quote, stupid in front of people, of being judged, of doing something and falling flat on our face, of failing. So we'd much rather either do it and get it right or not have anything to do with it. Right? We don't want to do it and get it wrong, especially repeatedly, especially with people watching. We can't live like that and not have some of it translate down to our children. Now, bottom line, if you want to be, if you're really afraid of failing and you want to not try different things, that is absolutely your prerogative. You have total freedom to do that. But if our children are doing this, it really slows down the learning process and creates a lot of obstacles. Because here's the bottom line. Our children might need to try 8 to 10 times to master certain things. Now, if they are unwilling to try more than once, they will never be able to master the things they need to try 8 or 10 times to master. So it is imperative that we get them to be good triers. And you know what? That entails them getting it wrong. That entails them not doing it in the right way or getting it correct. So that's not a bad thing. When I'm with a child and I say, I try and encourage them to do something or say something and they get it wrong or they don't do it all the way, I don't get disappointed. I get excited because I'm like, great, this is a chance for them to not get it right and for me to help them try multiple times and not get it right. And ultimately get better and better at it, but try and try. We want to build a little bridge from the first try to the second try to the third try to the fourth try, etc. And this is not rocket science, right? It's actually really simple. So I'll give you an example. There might be, let's say, a little boy who points to a glass of water on the shelf in the playroom. So he points to it, and I get an idea of what he's looking at, and I go, oh, you want the water? Say water, use your words, say water. And let's say this little boy says water, like he totally gets it right. Okay, then I do the first part, then I celebrate. I'm like, yes, you got it, here you go, nice job, right? I'm really excited for him. But let's say it's a different child, and I say water. And this little boy goes, So it says a little piece of it, definitely attempts it, but that's not the whole word, and that's not even most of the word. So it's not correct, but it's an attempt. So in that case, I might go, oh, that was so close. Nice. Let's try again, because that was so close. What? We're going to say what? Right? So now I'm actually building up from the next part. I'm celebrating that they really tried, but I'm not pretending and acting like they got it right. In fact, I'm using it as an excuse for another attempt. And I might actually really sit in and be persistent, and I might work with that little child and really try and have them try 5 or 6 times. First, I really want to have them, it's okay for them to get it wrong and really try, because that's the skill that's going to really serve them long term. To get good at and be comfortable with trying multiple times and not getting it right, and then trying and trying until they eventually do. It's really important. Okay, last piece. This is the most important piece of this principle without question. And also, probably for a lot of us, probably the hardest for a lot of parents and a lot of professionals, prioritize the interaction over the goal. Now, we struggle with this. We struggle with this because we're really into goals. We really want our kids to get these certain things. And you know what? In the Sunrise program, we are very focused on goals. We have lots of goals in the Sunrise program. So this isn't about not having goals or putting your goals aside. It's about making your goals a very important priority, but the number one priority is always going to be interaction. And this is another example of how we actually, in our bigger lives, we actually live in a particular way that then runs counter to this and then bleeds into our programs with our children, right? Think about when this might be a long time ago for some of you, think about when you've fallen in love and gotten involved with someone romantically, right? You first get involved, you're like really excited. You're excited just to spend time with them. You can't wait to get off work so that you can meet up with them again, or you call them on the phone. You're excited and you're like, ooh, it's all romantic, and you really enjoy just talking, or there's a real physical attraction between you, and it's like great. And everything's great. And you know what you love about it? You really start to like this person because you guys have a great interaction, this great connection going on. And then the relationship gets serious. It's serious, it's important. Don't laugh, it's important. Maybe you're not seeing, you're seeing each other exclusively, or you get married, or you date, you date over a long period of time, or whatever your definition is of serious, and then it's serious. And then what happens is, something happens to this, which is all of a sudden, other priorities enter the equation. And all these things that you need from your partner to get them to do the things that you want and to show that they love you in the right way that works for you. So it becomes a situation of like, hey, hello, I've been asking you for 3 days now to take out the garbage. Oh, I'm sure you want me to do it. No, listen, I'll be nice to you. No, I'll be nice to you. When you take out the garbage, then I'll be real nice, okay? But I've asked you a lot, now come on, right? Or, whatever our thing is, right? You said you were gonna be home at 6. It's 7:30. What, I'm just waiting around for you? Oh, this is great, this is really fun. I'm just waiting around for you, right? So all of this stuff is, now we need to get this stuff. We need to get the taking out the garbage. They need to talk to us in a certain way. They need to get home at the right time. They need to make love to us a certain number of times a week, whatever we've decided, right? All these things are important to us, and we really want to get these things. And we're each now grappling for things from our partner. And now all of a sudden, this interaction, which is the whole reason that we got together, has worked its way from priority 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, all the way down. So now it's around priority 47, right? Now this kills relationships. And I don't just work with families who have autism. I do a lot of couples counseling as well. This transition kills relationships. Now, if you want to do it that way, you have every right to do it that way. I'm not telling you how to do it. You do it however you want to do it. But if we do it this way with our children who have autism, then it starts to create lots of obstacles for us. Because the same scenario plays out, right? We have our child, and at first, we're just like thrilled. We have a child, right? We don't care if it's blonde hair, brown hair, light eyes, dark eyes. Who cares? It's our kid. We don't even care if the thing talks. It's so cute. Look at how it cries. It's just our baby. Any interaction we have, we're thrilled. And then we get the diagnosis, and then it gets serious, and now they're missing all this stuff, and they're behind their peers, and they're doing these behaviors that look really strange, and they're not caught up, and they can't make friends, and then there's all this stuff, and then they have digestive problems. Oh my! And we have to fix all these problems. So now, all of a sudden, all this other stuff becomes really important, and the interaction piece works its way down until it's around 47. This, again, when we do this with our children, it becomes a real problem because, remember, the interaction is the thing they most need to learn and get good at. The other stuff is important, but that all comes through interaction. That's the best way to get these other goals, is to get our child reliably interacting with us and to actually want to interact with us and to enjoy it. We had a mother who wanted her son to brush his teeth every night, and he just wouldn't do it. So she figured out a way to solve the problem. And what she would do was, she would chase him around, get him in a headlock, and brush his teeth like this. Now, it worked great. His teeth were clean every night. First of all, though, let's see her try that when he's 15. Not going to be so successful. Right? Secondly, though, and more importantly than any of that, every time she did that, she completely killed the interaction. So yes, she gets clean teeth every night, but the interaction between them is completely destroyed during those times. So ultimately, and here's the thing, you then create more and more difficulty because, okay, today it's brushing teeth. But that's not the only, we have 1,000 other things we're going to want to teach him, right? We're going to want to teach him to increase verbal communication, social skills, even brushing his hair, whatever that is. And now tomorrow, when I go on to those things, that's even harder and harder because he's now seen that these learning new skills is marked by coercion and physical manipulation. So now we've created actually more walls in between future learning. We haven't made anything easier for ourselves. So, what do? The key piece actually with this little boy, we really wanted to help her. And we wanted to help this mom and we wanted to help her son. And you know what, we said, listen, if you want him to be good at brushing his teeth, we can help you. We can help you with that. We don't think it's the #1 priority for him, but we'll show you this as an example of how you can keep the interaction and promote the goal. One of the key things here is this is not about giving up goals. It's about working toward a goal, and then as soon as a goal starts to conflict directly with interaction, meaning the only way you can get it is by pushing it really against the child, then we temporarily, very temporarily, put the goal aside and keep the interaction alive and then come back to the goal. Right? So, for instance, we were actually working directly with her son, and ultimately, as 2 examples, we had the first child facilitator went in with these two toothbrushes, right, and went, hey, I got these 2 toothbrushes, we're going to play with these toothbrushes. And he said, no. And every time this boy said, no, our child facilitator put the toothbrushes down, right, every single time. And literally every 5 minutes she'd go back and go, wait a minute, I got the toothbrushes, look what we can play. And every time she did that, he would go, no. So she would put the toothbrushes back down. Now ultimately, this happened for about an hour. Every time she picked up the toothbrushes, this little boy would say, no, he'd put the toothbrush down. And eventually, he saw that we meant business, that we were gonna walk our talk, that we were really gonna do this, right? That we were not gonna physically force him, we were gonna do that. And after about an hour, she pulls out the toothbrushes and he's okay with it. She builds up a whole game with him. She gets him to hold the toothbrushes. She gets the toothbrush right here. He has it really close to be put in his mouth. She starts to encourage him. He doesn't really want to, so they stay like this, and then the session ends. And then another child facilitator comes in, and he ends up actually inventing this game with this little boy about tickling your teeth. And now he brushes his teeth every day without even being asked. It's a no-brainer. But the important thing, that's not the point. The point actually is that the original child facilitator, she could have made it all about her ego, and it's really important that she get him to be the one that brushes his teeth, right? But that wasn't what it was about. And yes, maybe she could have just pushed his hand like this, but all that's going to do is compromise the interaction for the next person and for her, and for this little boy, and that's not what we want. So she didn't push. She went for it as much as she could. And we have a saying in the Sunrise program: no means no. For the next 5 minutes. Then I get to ask again. And then in 5 minutes I get to ask again. Right? And I'm going to be relentlessly persistent. I'm going to ask tomorrow and I'm going to ask the next day, but I'm also going to respect all the no's that I get. And that's what worked so beautifully with this little boy, of being really persistent, focusing on the goal, but being willing to temporarily put the goal aside to keep the interaction alive. I cannot possibly overstate the importance of this, because this is what is going to be really responsible for most long-term learning. Because now, again, at first, with the very first goal, it might take a little longer because you're not pushing. But long-term, you're going to save loads of time and increase learning, because now the next thing you try and teach your child, now they're much more engaged.